Hi there. Now today we're going to be looking at expanding and factorizing right at the sort of top end of GCSE, which is what you need to have honed really down so that you almost don't have to think about it too hard when you're doing A-level. Otherwise you're going to be spending a lot of time trying to do something just to help you get into the basic problem that you're doing. This is like knowing your times tables really quickly when you're doing more basic maths. So if you do struggle with expanding and factorizing, I'd like you to go through this video more than once and hone your skills until it's like second nature. So, expanding brackets starts just like what you'd normally see in GCSE at the left, and then as it goes across looks a little bit different. Some of them you would have seen before. Before I show you, pause the video and see how far you get with all of them. So the first one I would just do using the sum and product rule. So you're going to get x squared when the x and x are multiplied together. You're going to get 5x and 2x, so you're going to add together the 5 and 2 to get your coefficient of x, and then you're going to multiply those two together to get 10. I would always do it that way, 1 because it's quicker, and 2 because it'll help us with factorising later on. Right, now the second one, anytime it's a little bit different, I wouldn't try and do it in my head. I would always go back to the grid method, where you put one bracket down the side, and you put the other bracket along the top. So x times x squared is x cubed, x squared times negative 2y is negative 2x squared y, 1 times x is x, and 1 times negative 2y will be negative 2y. And then we can write out our final answer, looking to see if there's anything to simplify. There isn't, they're all different terms, so it's going to be x cubed plus x take 2x squared y take 2y. And you normally start with the x's to the left and the y's to the right, but it doesn't actually matter too much. Third one then, x minus y squared, I would write that as a double bracket first of all, and then think about whether I can do that in my head. X times x is going to give me x squared. X times negative y will give you negative xy, then you're going to get another negative xy, so it'll be negative 2xy. If necessary, draw the grid and check that it does the same. Negative times a negative is a positive, so we'll get plus y squared at the end. Now this last one, you may not have seen too much like this before, but it's not actually any trickier. It's just that you've got 3 terms in the second bracket. So we need to acknowledge that by multiplying x and y by those terms separately. So 3x times x is 3x squared, 3x times y is 3xy. Multiply that gives us negative 2xy, and again giving us negative 2y squared, negative 4x, negative 4y. And then I've got just those two that I can simplify looking at that. So it's going to give me 3x squared, negative 4x there. I've got 3, take 2 is 1, so plus 1xy, take 4y, take 2y squared. Okay, so that's the simplest ones. I'm going to have one more set of examples to have a crack at. And here they are. So once again, pause it, give it a go, and see if you agree with me. Now I would start here by just multiplying the x by the first bracket and writing down what that gives me as a new bracket. So that's going to give me 2x squared plus 3x, which all needs to be multiplied by x takes 7. At that point, I would draw another grid. Now it's just personal preference. I find it easier if I put the smaller one down the left, but you could have done it the other way. 2x squared times x is 2x cubed. 3x times x is 3x squared. Negative 14x squared. 7 3s are 21. so negative 21x. Having a crack at the next one, very similarly, just times both these by x first of all to give you 5x squared take 3xy, and then you'll be timesing it by that bracket there. And I'm going to save a bit of time by not just copying that out again. So I've got 5x squared, negative 3xy, and then 3 terms across here, so just give myself a bit of space. 2 times 5 is 10, so that's 10x cubed. Take 5x squared y plus 20x squared. 3 2's are 6, so negative 6x squared y. Take 3xy squared. Actually, it's not take, is it? Because it's a negative times a negative, so that is positive. And then negative 12xy. And then have a good careful look for any like terms. And these look identical to me, but everything else looks a little bit different. So then we can simplify, and so we've got 10x cubed. Deal with the pure x's first. Then negative 6 plus negative 5 is negative 11x squared y. So what have we not done? We haven't done plus 3xy squared, and take 12xy. And that means we've just got one to go. Expand that bracket gives us x squared. 3 take 4 is minus 1, so that's negative x, negative 12 times x plus 1. And then again set up x plus 1 and x squared, take x, take 12, x times x squared is x cubed, take x squared, take 12x, and then 1 times everything is easy, isn't it? Almost don't need to write that, just use a bit above. Anyway, now what have we got that will simplify? We've got x squareds and we've got x's, so we've got x cubed, they cancelled out, take 13x, take 12. And all we're going to do now is I'm going to give you a few to practice, so that'll come up on the screen for a few seconds, and you'll need to pause it, and then the answers will just come up after that, and you just need to keep practicing it until you are fluent and really confident at it. Except, sorry, I didn't simplify this one, did I? So I'm sure you spotted that. 2x cubed, 3 take 14, well 14 take 3 is 11, so that'll be negative 11x squared, take 21x. So here's your questions. Take your time, see how far you can get, do all that you can, and I'll just pause the video now. And here are the answers. So hopefully there's no big surprises in there. If there are, go through and check you're working. It doesn't matter what order the different terms are in. So if you put 4xy squared before 6x squared y, that doesn't matter. The normal thing is to go with as many x's as you can earlier. So maybe that 2y squared should be at the end. Anyway, the last one here, you just expand it as you would do normally. So you get an answer a bit like that, and then you're writing down what the values are for each letter. There are quite a lot of questions that like to go that way as you get into A-level. Okay, right, time to move on towards factorising. Right, so here are as many expressions as I've got different colours to set out with. So you've got 7 there. Pause the video and see how many of those you can factorise. You'll notice they're all sort of quadratics of a kind, apart from the last one. But anyway, how are we getting on? So the first one, we're just using the sum and product rule. So 2 numbers have got to add up to negative 5, and they've got to multiply to negative 6. So 3 times 2 is 6, and 3 add 2 is 5. So if it was plus 5x and plus 6, it would be x plus 3x take 2, but because it's, I've got that wrong, haven't I? Straight away, it's going to be a positive times a negative, and it can't be 3 and 2, because it's actually looking for the difference when we're doing that. So 6 times 1 is 6, isn't it? And I could have negative 6 and positive 1 would sum together to make that. But the easiest way to look, when you've got negatives involved here, is for the difference between them, or negative involved here. If it's a positive there, then it could be a negative times a negative, or a negative or positive times a positive. If you've got a negative constant, it's going to be a mixture. And the second one is easier because it's both positives. So that means we know we're dealing with x plus and x plus, and we're looking for two numbers that multiply together to make 6 and add together to make 8. Well, 4 times 2 is 8, and 4 add 2 is 6, so it's x plus 4, x plus 2. Now, a coefficient of x squared. This is a little trickier. You may want to practice these a fair bit. I'll give you the rule I use is if you imagine it as being ax squared plus bx plus c, like you do when you're doing the quadratic formula, then instead of just being numbers that multiply together to make the constant, we need numbers that multiply together to make a times c. So we're looking for product equals negative 60, and we're looking for the sum still to be negative 11. So I'm going to forget about the negative first of all, just to think about what my factors of 60 are. 1 and 60, if we had one positive and one negative, is the difference between them 11? No, because it's a mixture. So 2 times 30, difference between them is 28, so we're going to have to be closer together. 3 times 20, difference between them is 17, we're getting closer. 4 times 15, difference between 4 and 15 is 11, so it's going to have to be negative 15 and positive 4 to make negative 11. So those two I'm going to pick. So now I'm going to rewrite. I'm going to write 6x squared, take 11x, take 10 again. And then underneath that, I'm going to write it out once more as 6x squared. Then I'm going to say, I know I want negative 15x, and I want plus 4x to come out of my two brackets. And they're going to combine to make negative 11x. And then I'm going to have negative 10 at the end. And then what I do is I just look at this here as being two different expressions. And I'm going to say I'm going to do single bracket factorization of both of these. So what goes into 6x? Right, this will be 3x goes into 6x squared 2x times, and it goes in there negative 5 times to make negative 15x. And then here, you will always have this bracket will be part of this factorization, so you'll know we're right there. So 2x take 5. What do I times by 2x to get 4x? 2. Check that works for negative 10, and it does. And now we're virtually there. My first bracket is the one I can see. My other bracket is made up of 3x plus 2. And then if you want to make doubly sure, you can multiply it out again later. But that's the trickiest one, and that's probably the skill that some of you are going to need to pause the video, go through that method again and practice a few times. But I will give you some more to have a practice at on that in a minute. This one here, hopefully you spotted, this is a difference between two squares. So we've got no x's, we've just got x squared, and we've got taking a square number. So that means because the square root of 25 is 5, if you multiplied x plus 5 and x take 5 together, you would get 5x and negative 5x, which would cancel each other out. So that is that one done. The next one is another difference between two squares, but slightly sneakier because you've got 4 is a square number and so is 9. So we're going to have 2x plus 3y. And then to get the negative 9y squared, we're going to be multiplying by negative 3y. And because those are going to give us the same things cancelling out, all our xy's will disappear there. Sixth one. There's no constant. What do we do? Well, actually, these last two are simpler because you can do them in a single bracket. So 8 doesn't go into 20, but 4 does. And then we've got x, so it's just 4x outside the bracket. And that would be 2x there, wouldn't it? And then times plus 5. Now, if you're wondering, why do we have single bracket factorization for a quadratic? Actually, you could think of it as 4x plus 0. And if you were to take the time to make a little grid and multiply that out, you would end up with exactly the same thing, because 0 times 2x and 0 times 5 is nothing, is it? We just don't bother to write that, so we don't need that. So you can think of it like that if that helps, but we don't need to worry about that. And the last one, what have we got going into both of these? We've got 3 going into both, we've got an x in both, and we've got a single y in both. Then if I times 3 by 3, I get 9x by xy, I get x squared y. And then 5 3s are 15, and a y there. Okay, so that is our examples for this. I'm going to put some questions up for you, just like we did with the expanding before, and you can pause the video, and then the answers will come up a bit afterwards. Sorry folks, just quickly, before I do give you those, just realised I've got a couple of other cases we should look at. What happens if we've got x cubed in there? Well, we've got x's in all of these, in both these examples. Let's look at this one first. So I could start by taking a factor of x out of there. And you probably thought about that. But then if you look at that, what do you notice about that? It's the difference between two squares, isn't it? So we can then factorise that into x plus 5, x take 5. Have a little look and see if you can work out what would happen with this one. So we start by taking x out of them all to give us x squared plus 3x take 10. And then we just factorise this into 2. So 5 times 2 is 10. The difference between 5 and 2 is 3, so it'll be plus 5 and take 2. Here's your practice questions then. Pause the video, give them a good go. In a moment, the answers will pop up. And here are your answers. I have done sort of extended working for how we sort out factorising with the coefficient of x squared being more than 1 for this one there, and for this one at the bottom just here. So you take your factor of x out and then you go through the whole a times c process and 2 single brackets to get where you are. By the way, it doesn't matter which way you have your 10x and your minus 3x. If you'd done 6x squared minus 3x plus 10x, you would have just ended up with 2x minus 1 as being inside your bracket there. Also notice with the negative here, it was negative of what I wanted. So I put down what I wanted and then said, right, I times that both of those by negative 1, which is why I ended up with negative 1 there. All right, that's all for today, folks. Cheerio.